Well, the waiting is over. Spartans and Wolverines clash this Saturday as we welcome in Anthony Bellino. You see him every morning right here on the X's and Bros show on BCSN. Anthony, thank you for joining us.
Mark, as always, it is an absolute pleasure, and you can't go 8-0 if you don't start off 7-0 first. Life is good if you're wearing the maize and blue, my friend.
Let's talk about that victory over Indiana. The Hoosiers led that game 7-0, and then after that it was all Michigan, 52 straight points. And it was a 7-7 game midway through the second quarter. They totally went on a blitz from the mid-second quarter on.
You know what was really interesting about that game, Mark, and not the fact that, I was outside and it was mid-40s and it was raining the entire time. And I thought to myself, if there was ever a day for Jim Harbaugh-style football in 2023, today is going to be that day, Mark. That's what I thought to myself until I watched those first couple possessions where it felt like, Michigan was just going to try to throw the ball in the elements nonstop, and that's what they wanted to do. I figured that we might see 100 carries for 800 and some yards and a blowout type of score like we saw. I didn't expect to see the Wolverines pass as much as they did early on in that game. In Indiana, Jalen Lucas taking that 44-yard pass from Donovan McCauley, and everybody's feeling good for the Hoosiers, and it's 7-0 there at the end of the first quarter. And you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, what in the world is actually going to happen? And then all of a sudden, Michigan football happened. They woke up and in their next 8 possessions scored 7 times and scored touchdowns 7 times, I should say, and scored an 8th time with a field goal. It was an absolute masterclass from the second, third, and fourth quarter. That was fine, but that first quarter, man, that was a head scratcher. I thought for sure we were going to see way more running the football considering the elements, and it just turned out that just took them a little bit of time.
J.J. McCarthy wins the Big Ten Offensive Player of the Week honors. And, Jim Harbaugh's been consistent in saying that he believes J.J. McCarthy is a once-in-a-generation quarterback. Well, this week, Harbaugh heaping some higher praise on J.J. McCarthy, saying McCarthy is on the path to be the best quarterback ever at Michigan and will be the standard by which all other quarterbacks will be compared.
Okay, so the second part, yeah, sure, that's fine. As far as the first part, the once in the generation thing, we got to come up with something new. Because to be honest with you, J.J. McCarthy and Patrick Mahomes are in the same generation, just like Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. I think that they are in the same generation too, depending on how you look at it. Generation span, 15 to 20 years. So without getting into technicality, they played football at the same time together, right, Tom and Patrick Mahomes? Tom Brady has 7 Super Bowls. That is the best quarterback of his generation. I think the generational talent thing is way overplayed. Every year, there's how many quarterbacks to get drafted that are going to be a generational talent. Let's settle down here on that part. The second part, yeah, J.J. McCarthy's got all the goods necessary to be the best quarterback in Michigan history. Michigan history hasn't been filled with, top-notch, high-flying, 4,000 yards and 40 touchdown type of performers. It just doesn't happen with the way that the style of football that Michigan has played throughout the inception of the game there in Ann Arbor since like 1894 or whatever. So yeah, sure. Could he be the best ever to play at Michigan? I'm fine with that. Once in a generation quarterback. Think about the quarterback class and the guys that are going to be playing professional football next year. This is one of the deepest classes at that position that we've seen in who knows how long. You have Drake May, you have Caleb Williams, you have Michael Penix Jr., you have Bo Nix. The Pac-12 alone has 4 guys that could be drafted. I think that's way too much. I appreciate him supporting his guy. Generational quarterbacks, 14 of 17 for 222 and 3 touchdowns is fine. Against Indiana, sure, it gets the job done, but no, I disagree with that other portion.
One final thought on the Indiana game. The defense, again, forcing a lot of turnovers. A unheralded defense that perhaps needs more and more heralds because of the way they are performing week in and week out.
Yeah, defensively, this team is absolutely dynamite. You think about, conditions, factor those in there as well, because that was going to hamper some offense, you would think. They really, they hold Indiana to 140 yards passing in the last game, 92 yards rushing. The defense was absolutely dominant. They had a couple of turnovers forced as well, and a couple of picks. Little Johnny on the spot action. Probably could have made it 3 interceptions too, but some D linemen have some trouble catching from time to time. I don't know. It's a surprise, right? It's like you don't see a whole lot of D linemen with the opportunity to intercept the pass. But the defense has done exactly what they are supposed to do, albeit, once again, another week where I have to bring it up because I have to be fair about it. they haven't exactly played world beaters, right? And that comes to, with James Franklin, all the chatter about scheduling from last week. I thought it was kind of ironic because I believe that Penn State's schedule ranks 111th in the country, and Michigan right now, their strength of schedule is 112th. So yes, I'm happy with the way the defense is playing. They're holding everybody. I mean, Minnesota scored the most with 10 points in a game. That's fine and dandy, but the level of competition has been less than stellar. So I try to keep all things in perspective. Let's see what happens, when they have to play an offense like an Ohio State, when they have to play a team like Penn State. That's going to be a great matchup this week between the Buckeyes and the Nittany Lions. If they can make it to the Big Ten championship, whomever comes out of the West, and then if there's a college football playoff berth, that will up the stakes a little bit as well. And then we'll go and evaluate how good this defense has been, because I feel like, especially go back to last year, right? The Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in the country is handed out. Michigan wins it 2 years in a row. Michigan's offensive line did not look like the best offensive line in the country against Georgia 2 years ago or against TCU last year in the college football playoff. So I'm a little hesitant to anoint anybody until we see them play the same caliber and quality of team that they are.
It's been a long, strange trip over the last 350 days between the last time Michigan and Michigan State played and this Saturday. The fight, a lot of people are still talking about it. Michigan says they're not. It's in the past. They're not going to hold grudges. But let's face it, there's been a lot of rhetoric tossed between both sides over the last year or so. Maybe it's tempered down a little bit over the last couple of months with Michigan State's off-field issues and their struggles on the field. But boy, there's going to be a lot of juice to this game Saturday night in East Lansing.
Yeah, I'm very much excited to see how well the Michigan fan base actually travels to this. A while back when it was announced that it was going to be a night game, there were, some radio hosts in the Metro Detroit area who said, don't come if you're a Michigan fan. Like it was going to be some sort of bloodbath. Like it was like Green Street hooligans. There was going to be like a soccer match. Those soccer fans over there in Europe go crazy and they riot in the streets and they meet up like it's Warriors or something. I didn't see that happening then. I sure as heck don't see it happening now. What I do want to see, however, is how well the Maize and Blue are represented. I think they could easily flip East Lansing based on the season that the Spartans are having right now. I mean, even when everything is going according to plan like it did last week for Michigan State, they can't get out of their own way. Untimely penalties, unforced errors and turnovers, lapses of judgment and execution and special teams. It has added up to be one of the worst football seasons that we have seen for Michigan State in quite some time. I actually kind of feel for their fan base, and I know that a lot of people might look at me crooked because of my ties to the University of Michigan when I say that. But if you go back to the Kenneth Walker year, when both teams are 7-0 and they meet up in late October with everything on the line, it's a rivalry game. All of college football is focused and centered on the great state of Michigan. That is good for the game. It's good for the rivalry. It's just good overall. What we're seeing this week now, I'm not saying that look, I mean, Michigan in the year 2020 was a 27-point favorite during the COVID year, and Michigan State got the victory, right? Maybe a little fool's gold there from Mel Tucker and company. So a lot of things can happen. You still have to roll it out there and play. Emotions will be high, but I don't foresee this game being anything outside of the ordinary of what we've seen from Michigan football. Hopefully they get off to a little bit of a better start in this ball game. Maybe you can put this thing away by the second or third quarter, have your starters out of the game in the fourth and kind of coast to a victory. That's what I would like to see. Hopefully it's not too close and a nail biter where Michigan State galvanizes or something crazy here. We don't need any of that nonsense. Let's just stick to the script. It sounded like, 52-6, Mark. That's what it sounded like.
And that has been the script for the most part for the Michigan Wolverines this season. They haven't played a four-quarter game. They've been able to get their starters out, rest them up, and you're facing an underdog on the road. You had a slow start against Indiana. We've seen slow starts by Michigan in this game in years past. You can't give the underdogs hope and allow them to stay in the game through the second quarter or the second half because strange things can happen.
Strange things can. And, this is a Michigan State team that against Iowa in that game, they had a really good opportunity to win that against Rutgers last week, both of those being on the road. They should have won that football game, but they shot themselves in the foot. It's an area where it's one of those things, much like boxing, right? The sooner that you can end it, the better off you are. Don't let the fight go to the judges' scorecards, and don't let somebody, hang around and sneak in a knockout punch when it's unexpected. Business trip per usual. You go to East Lansing. You take care of business, you get off to a better start than what you did against Indiana to kind of take the momentum away from Michigan State, but you play your game. And I think that that's really the sign of a good team is when, it doesn't matter what the conditions are. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. When they can really dictate their pace and their game plan, this is what we are going to do and we dare you to stop it. Those are the marks of really good football teams. I think Michigan has the edge. They definitely do on paper from an athlete standpoint. I know that Michigan State fans are a little dejected. They're definitely, looking forward to Tom Izzo. And I heard earlier this week on the show in the morning that, it's time for Tom Izzo to win a national championship and we could forget all of this. That is the point that Spartan fans have reached right now with this football season, but don't let it linger, right? Make the statement, make it early, reinforce it throughout the next couple of quarters, and then enjoy yourself on the way home.
Not to look too far ahead, but Jim Harbaugh was asked about this and he kind of addressed it this week. Michigan's program, 996 victories, the most by any college football program. That means they're 4 away from 1,000. He's already starting to think about it, some of the things they want to commemorate the 1,000 victories. If everything goes according to plan, that will be the game against Maryland the week before the Ohio State game. Are you comfortable with Michigan looking ahead and planning and thinking about an 1,000-win celebration?
It's the Michigan Wolverines' 19th consecutive Big Ten victory last week against Indiana. That's matching the school record set from 1990 to 92. They've scored 30-plus points in a program record, 10 consecutive games dating back to last season. It's pretty interesting. When you mentioned the historical context of 996 wins, definitely going to be the first university to 1,000. That's sensational. It is historical, what they have been able to do. I found James Franklin's comments that we talked about a couple weeks ago very interesting, considering the fact that James Franklin and Penn State played UMass last week. That's strange. They'll have a good test this week, but it is important. It's historical. It's a part of the story of Michigan football. And to be honest with you, when you think about 996, sure, recency bias here. You might say like, okay, well, they haven't played anybody in the last, couple of years in the non-conference schedule. But if I said, who'd they play in the 1997 non-conference, most people wouldn't have any idea. And all that matters is that hash mark in the win column and that they're able to do that. That's what's most important. They got a really good opportunity to, make it their 20th consecutive Big Ten victory. I think they're chasing Ohio State. I think it might have had 30-ish, somewhere around there, for the overall conference record, which I think is attainable as long as they carry on. And that's a regular season Big Ten conference winning streak. That doesn't include the Big Ten conference championship games. So it's all there. It's all very historical. It's all very important. But the most important thing out of all of it is the fact that you have to win to keep those streaks alive, right? And that's what matters the most if you are Michigan, because everybody is waiting for this team to eventually slip up. They've been able to kind of cover their own behinds, if you will, in games like Indiana, where they've started slow, in games like Bowling Green, where they turned it over a whole bunch. Felt really good after the Minnesota game. I still feel very good even after the slow start against Indiana, but you just got to stack really good days, right? So you take the second, third, and fourth quarter, you stack those, you carry them into this week, a good week of preparation, take care of business against your rival, then you can come back home for Purdue and then really get into the meat and the potatoes of the schedule, which is coming a lot sooner than we think.
And that 19-game Big Ten regular season winning streak began the week after losing to Michigan State in 2021. I want to thank our guest, Anthony Bellino from the X's and Bros Show. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us.
Mark, my friend, always a pleasure. Go Blue.